In the heart of Yellowstone National Park, on a crisp September morning in 2002, a family of four stood laughing by a bubbling thermal spring, their digital camera clicking as they captured the moment. Sean Caldwell, a 38-year-old park ranger turned amateur photographer, snapped photos of his wife, Leona, and their two children, 10-year-old Juniper and 7-year-old Dalton, their faces glowing with the kind of joy only a family adventure can bring. The Caldwells were meticulous planners, known for their love of the wild and their careful preparation for every hike. Sean, with his weathered field guide and topographic maps, could navigate Yellowstone's trails blindfolded. Leona, a botanist, taught the kids to spot wildflowers by name, but by nightfall their laughter was gone, swallowed by the vast, unforgiving wilderness. They never returned to their campsite. For years, their disappearance baffled rangers, volunteers, and a grieving community. No trace, no clues, just silence, until a hiker stumbled across a hidden camera in a remote canyon, its memory card holding images that would unravel a mystery no one saw coming. The sun hung low over Yellowstone's Lamar Valley, painting the rolling hills in shades of gold and amber. It was September 12, 2002, and Sean Caldwell adjusted the straps of his backpack, double-checking the water bottles and granola bars packed for the day. Juniper, with her braided pigtails and a notebook for sketching plants, bounced excitedly beside her mother. Dalton, clutching a small stuffed wolf he called Echo, asked if they'd see a real wolf today. Leona smiled, promising they'd keep their eyes peeled. The family had planned a 6-mile loop along the Slough Creek Trail, a moderate path known for its sweeping views and occasional wildlife sightings. They'd camped in Yellowstone for a week, a tradition since Juniper was a toddler, and Sean's ranger training meant they never took chances. He carried a satellite phone, a first aid kit, and a detailed itinerary left with the park's backcountry office. By 6 p.m., they were due back at their campsite where Leona's brother Miles waited to join them for dinner. When 7 p.m. came and went, Miles chalked it up to a slow pace. Kids could dawdle after all. But by 8:30 p.m., with the sky bruising purple and no sign of them, a gnawing worry took hold. Miles drove to the nearest ranger station, his hands shaking as he explained that his sister's family was overdue. Ranger Alice Henshaw, a 15-year veteran with a reputation for staying calm under pressure, took the report. Sean's expertise made the situation unusual. A man who could read animal tracks like a storybook and start a fire with damp wood didn't just vanish. With a child as young as Dalton, Sean would have been hyper-vigilant, planning for every contingency. Alice's gut told her this wasn't a simple case of getting lost. She activated the park's search and rescue protocol, and by dawn, a command post buzzed with activity at the Slough Creek trailhead. Helicopters thrummed overhead, their pilots scanning the endless sea of lodgepole pines and open meadows. Ground teams, a mix of rangers and volunteers, fanned out, their radios crackling with coordinates. Yellowstone's terrain was as deceptive as it was beautiful. Gentle trails could drop into steep ravines, and thermal areas hid scalding dangers beneath thin crusts of earth. The searchers moved methodically, checking for footprints, broken branches, anything. They found nothing. Days turned into weeks, and the search grew desperate. The Caldwell's campsite, untouched since that morning, held their neatly packed tent, a cooler with food, and Sean's truck in the parking lot. The only clue was a single photo uploaded to Leona's email from Sean's camera at 11:47 a.m. that day. A shot of Juniper and Dalton grinning by a creek, Sean's reflection faintly visible in the water. The caption read, "Kids are loving this. See you soon." The image became the face of the case, plastered on missing persons flyers across Wyoming. Alice Henshaw pored over the photo, noting Sean's green windbreaker and Juniper's bright blue backpack. The family looked happy, at ease, unaware of what was coming. The absence of evidence was maddening. Sean's knowledge should have left a trail. Discarded wrappers, a marked tree, something. By the third week, Seanries swirled. Had they fallen into a thermal spring, wandered off trail and succumbed to exposure? Or, as whispers in online forums began to suggest, had Sean planned to disappear, taking his family off-grid? Miles rejected this outright. Sean and Leona were devoted. Their kids, their world. The idea of them abandoning their lives was absurd. Yet, with no leads, the search scaled back. The command post was dismantled, and the Caldwells joined Yellowstone's long list of unsolved mysteries. Miles kept searching, hiking the trails on weekends, his hope a flickering flame against the park's vast indifference. 5 years passed, the case growing cold, the public's interest fading into campfire tales. Then, on August 9, 2007, a lone hiker named Gideon Wells, an off-duty firefighter exploring a remote slot canyon near the Lamar River, spotted something wedged between two boulders. It was a small, weather-beaten digital camera, its silver casing scratched but intact. Curious, Gideon powered it on, and what he saw on the tiny screen sent a chill through him. The memory card held photos of the Caldwells, Sean, Leona, Juniper, and Dalton, taken on that fateful day in 2002. If you're gripped by this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that unravel the unknown. Gideon's find was about to change everything, pulling a forgotten case back into the light. Gideon Wells clutched the camera, his breath catching as he scrolled through the images. The tiny screen flickered with snapshots of the Caldwells' final hours, Leona pointing at a distant elk, Juniper sketching in her notebook, Dalton holding Echo the stuffed wolf against a backdrop of towering pines. The last photo, time-stamped 2:14 p.m. on September 12, 2002, showed Sean kneeling beside a narrow stream, his green windbreaker vivid against the gray rocks. Behind him, a faint shadow stretched across the ground, not his own but something else, indistinct and unsettling. Gideon's firefighter instincts kicked in. This wasn't just lost gear. He marked the GPS coordinates and hiked 3 hours back to the Lamar Ranger Station, where he handed the camera to Ranger Alice Henshaw. Her hands trembled as she recognized the family in the photos. The Caldwell's case file, buried under 5 years of dust, was reopened that day. The camera, a rugged model designed for outdoor use, was sent to the Wyoming State Crime Lab in Cheyenne. Forensic technician Dr. Mara Keene, a specialist in digital evidence recovery, took charge. Her lab, filled with humming computers and glowing monitors, was a stark contrast to Yellowstone's wild expanse. Mara's first task was to extract the memory card's data without corrupting it. The camera had endured years of exposure, its casing cracked, but the card inside was miraculously intact. She recovered 47 photos in a single 12-second video clip. The images traced the Caldwell's morning, breakfast by the creek, Juniper's blue backpack catching the sunlight, Dalton giggling as Sean pretended to chase him. The video, shot at 1:52 p.m., showed Leona narrating as the family crossed a rocky outcrop. "Look at that geyser basin," she said, her voice warm. "Sean says we're making great time." The clip ended abruptly, the camera jerking as if dropped. Mara noticed something else. Metadata embedded in the files revealed the camera's GPS had been active, pinpointing each photo's location. Plotting the coordinates, she mapped a path veering slightly off the Slough Creek Trail toward a rugged area known as Hell-Roaring Canyon, a place Sean, with his ranger experience, would have avoided with young kids. The shadow in the final photo gnawed at Alice Henshaw. Enlarged on a lab monitor, it was humanoid but blurred, impossible to identify. Was it a hiker, a trick of light, or something more sinister? The discovery electrified the investigation. Alice assembled a small team of elite rangers and a geologist, Dr. Nicholas Adams, to explore Hell-Roaring Canyon. The terrain was brutal. Steep cliffs, loose scree, and thermal vents that could burn through boots. Using the camera's GPS data, they retraced the Caldwell's path, moving deeper into the canyon than any search team had gone in 2002. The original search had focused on the main trail, assuming Sean's expertise kept them close to safety. Hell-Roaring, with its treacherous drops and hidden sinkholes, had been deemed too dangerous for a family hike. On day 2, the team found a clue, a child's sneaker size 2, caked in dried mud, wedged under a boulder. It matched Dalton's shoes from the missing persons report. Nearby, a scrap of blue fabric, torn from Juniper's backpack, clung to a thorny shrub. The finds were small but seismic, proof the Caldwells had been here. Alice's heart raced. They were closer than anyone had been in years, but the canyon offered no further answers. The trail went cold again, and the shadow's mystery deepened. Dr. Mara Keene dug deeper into the camera's data, analyzing the video's audio for background sounds. Amid Leona's narration, she detected a faint, rhythmic noise, like footsteps on gravel, not matching the family's movements. Someone else was there, close enough to be heard but out of frame. The realization shifted the case from a wilderness accident to something potentially criminal. Alice contacted the FBI and Agent Tessa Breyer joined the investigation. Tessa, a seasoned profiler, suspected foul play. Sean's skills made an accidental disappearance unlikely. The shadow and footsteps suggested an encounter. She Seanrized the Caldwells had crossed paths with someone, perhaps a poacher or transient, who didn't want witnesses. Yellowstone, despite its beauty, had a history of drifters living off-grid, some with records for petty crimes. Tessa's team scoured park records from 2002, focusing on citations issued near Slough Creek. They found a report of a man named Harlan Tate, a local drifter cited for illegal camping 2 weeks before the Caldwells vanished. Harlan was known for scavenging in remote areas, avoiding rangers and carrying a distinctive hand-carved walking stick. Could he be the shadow? The camera's evidence was compelling, but it raised more questions. Where was the family now? Had they fallen into a hidden thermal sinkhole, their bodies dissolved by boiling water? Or had someone ensured they'd never be found? The search team pushed deeper into Hell-Roaring Canyon, guided by the GPS data and a growing sense of unease. If this story's pulling you in, smash that like button and subscribe for more mysteries that keep you guessing. The camera had spoken, but its final secrets were still locked away, waiting to be uncovered. Hell-Roaring Canyon seemed to swallow sound itself, the air thick with the scent of sulfur from hidden thermal vents. The search team, led by Ranger Alice Henshaw and guided by Dr. Nicholas Adams's geological expertise, moved with cautious precision, their boots crunching on loose shale. The GPS coordinates from the Caldwell's camera pointed to a narrow slot canyon, its walls rising 80 feet, jagged and unyielding. The child's sneaker and scrap of blue fabric had ignited hope, but the canyon's vastness was daunting. Every crevice, every overhang could hide answers, or nothing at all. Alice's radio crackled with updates from base, where Agent Tessa Breyer coordinated with the FBI, digging into Harlan Tate's history. The Drifter's 2002 citation painted a picture of a loner, 42 years old, known for scavenging scrap metal and poaching fish in Yellowstone's backcountry. He'd vanished from park records after the citation. No trace of him in Wyoming since. Tessa's team expanded their search, pulling DMV records and local police reports. Harlan had a sister in Bozeman, Montana, who hadn't seen him in years but mentioned he'd talked about living free in the park's wilds. The possibility that he'd encountered the Caldwells grew stronger, but proof remained elusive. In the canyon, Nicholas noticed something unusual, a faint trail of disturbed gravel, barely visible, leading to a low overhang shielded by a cluster of stunted junipers. He knelt, brushing aside dirt, and found a small rusted metal button, the kind used on children's overalls. It matched the description of Dalton's outfit in the missing persons report. Alice's pulse quickened. This was no coincidence. The overhang was tight, barely 3 feet high, but it opened into a shallow cave, its interior cool and dry. Inside, the team found a faded granola bar wrapper, its brand matching the Caldwell's supplies. The cave was a natural shelter, the kind Sean would have chosen if injured or hiding. But why hide? The question hung heavy as they searched the space, finding no bones, no blood, just the eerie quiet of a place untouched by time. Back at the crime lab, Dr. Mara Keene pushed the camera's memory card to its limits, recovering fragments of corrupted data. One partial image, time-stamped 2:17 p.m., showed a blurry figure holding what looked like a stick or pole standing near a rock formation. The shadow from the earlier photo now had a shape, and it matched descriptions of Harlan's walking stick. Mara enhanced the audio from the video clip, isolating the gravelly footsteps. A faint, low voice emerged, not Sean's or Leona's, saying, "Keep moving." The words were chilling, suggesting the Caldwells weren't alone in their final moments. Tessa Sean-Rised Harlan had confronted them, perhaps over a territorial dispute or fear of being reported. Sean, protective of his family, might have resisted, escalating a chance encounter into something deadly. The search team doubled down, focusing on the Slot Canyon's upper reaches, where water-carved channels suggested flash floods could have swept away evidence. Caleb's hydrological models showed a minor flood in 2003, enough to move small objects like the camera, but not heavy remains. If the Caldwells had died here, their bodies might still be nearby, hidden in a sinkhole or buried under debris. On day 4, a ranger spotted a glint of metal under a pile of rocks. It was a bent tent pole, part of the Caldwells' gear, wedged in a crevice. Nearby, a tattered piece of green fabric, likely from Sean's windbreaker, snagged on a sharp outcrop. The finds were heartbreaking, proof the family had reached this remote corner, but no closer to explaining their fate. Tessa's investigation into Harlan Tate hit a breakthrough when a Bozeman pawn shop reported a transaction from 2003. Harlan had sold a child's backpack, blue, with a torn strap, for $20. The description matched Juniper's. The shop owner remembered Harlan as nervous, eager to leave town. Tessa traced his movements to a transient camp in Idaho where he'd been spotted in 2004, then vanished again. The possibility that Harlan had taken something from the Caldwells, or worse, taken them, grew stronger. Alice's team pressed deeper into the canyon, now joined by cadaver dogs trained to detect human remains. The dogs alerted near a deep fissure, its entrance partially collapsed. Digging revealed a child's stuffed animal, a wolf, faded but intact. Dalton's echo. Alice's throat tightened. This was the closest they'd come to the family. The fissure was too unstable to explore fully, but ground-penetrating radar showed anomalies beneath, possibly organic material. The team marked it for a specialized excavation, knowing time and weather could destroy what little remained. The camera's images, the footsteps, the voice, all pointed to Harlan Tate as the key. Tessa issued a nationwide alert for him, though hope of finding him alive after 5 years was slim. The investigation now balanced on a knife's edge. Was this a tragic accident? Or had Harlan ensured the Caldwells' silence? The canyon held its secrets tight, but the camera was still talking, and Alice wasn't ready to stop listening. If this mystery has you hooked, hit like and subscribe to dive deeper into stories that haunt the wild. The truth was close, buried in rock and time, waiting for one final push to break free. The fissure in Hell-Roaring Canyon loomed like a wound in the earth, its jagged edges daring the team to probe deeper. Ranger Alice Henshaw stood at its mouth, the air heavy with the mineral tang of ancient rock. The discovery of Dalton's stuffed wolf Echo had hit hard, a tangible piece of a little boy's world, now reduced to a tattered relic. The ground-penetrating radar had flagged something beneath the fissure, irregular shapes that could be human remains or just geological noise. Excavation was risky. The unstable walls could collapse, but Alice knew they couldn't walk away. The Caldwells deserved answers. She called in a specialized team from the National Park Service, equipped with shoring equipment to stabilize the fissure. Meanwhile, Agent Tessa Breyer's pursuit of Harlan Tate intensified. A tip from an Idaho sheriff placed him in a transient camp near Coeur d'Alene in 2005, living under an alias. He'd been arrested for petty theft, but slipped away before sentencing. Tessa's team found a grainy photo from the arrest, a gaunt man with a carved walking stick, its handle wrapped in frayed leather cord. It matched the shape in the camera's blurry image. Harlan wasn't just a drifter, he was a ghost, moving through the margins of society, leaving whispers but no trace. In the canyon, the excavation team worked with surgical care, bracing the fissure's walls with steel supports. They cleared loose rock, revealing a narrow chamber below, about 10 feet deep. At the bottom, partially buried in silt, they found a small plastic case, a camera lens cap engraved with TC, Sean Caldwell's initials. Nearby lay a shredded fragment of Leona's field notebook, its pages brittle but legible, listing wildflowers, paintbrush, lupine, columbine. The finds were intimate, devastating, proof the family had been in this exact spot. But no bones, no definitive sign of their fate. Dr. Mara Keene, back at the lab, pushed the camera's data further, recovering a corrupted audio file from the same timestamp as the final photo. It was faint, barely audible, but after enhancement, a man's voice, not Sean's, growled, "Don't turn around." The words sent a chill through the team. The Caldwells hadn't wandered into danger, they'd been stalked. Mara cross-referenced the voice's pitch and cadence with known recordings of Harlan from his 2005 arrest. It wasn't conclusive, but the similarity was uncanny. Tessa Shonreized Harlan had been scavenging in the canyon, perhaps illegally panning for minerals, a common crime in Yellowstone's remote corners. The Caldwells, with their camera and Sean's ranger instincts, might have caught him in the act, triggering a confrontation. The excavation uncovered more: a child's hair clip, silver with a butterfly design, matching Juniper's description. It was tangled in roots, as if washed into the fissure by water. Nicholas Adams, the geologist, studied the chamber's walls, noting signs of an old flash flood, smoothed pebbles and layered silt. His 2003 flood model suggested water had surged through here, strong enough to carry small objects like the camera or echo, but not heavy bodies. If the Caldwells had died in the fissure, their remains might have been swept deeper underground, into a network of thermal-heated caverns where recovery was nearly impossible. Tessa's team dug into Harlan's past, uncovering a 1999 assault charge in Montana, dropped for lack of evidence. He'd attacked a hiker who'd reported him for poaching. The pattern fit. Harlan was territorial, volatile, and familiar with Yellowstone's hidden corners. A witness from the Idaho camp recalled him bragging about outsmarting rangers in the park. Tessa issued a warrant for his arrest, dead or alive, but the trail was cold. The man was a shadow, slipping through the cracks of the system. In the canyon, the team faced a grim reality. The fissure's deepest reaches were inaccessible without heavy equipment, and funding was running thin. Alice pushed for one last sweep, focusing on a nearby thermal spring, its steaming water a reminder of Yellowstone's deadly unpredictability. Cadaver dogs alerted near the spring's edge, where the ground was soft and unstable. A probe revealed a metal object, a buckle from a backpack, its nylon straps burned away by acidic water. Chemical analysis confirmed traces of human DNA, too degraded to identify but enough to suggest someone had been here. The spring's heat could dissolve a body in days, leaving no trace. Alice's heart sank. The Caldwells might be gone forever, their story ending in scalding silence. Yet the camera's evidence, those footsteps, that voice, pointed to Harlan as the key. Tessa tracked a lead to a Wyoming pawnshop, where in 2003 Harlan had sold a woman's watch, inscribed with, "To Leona forever, Sean." It was a gut punch. He'd taken trophies, proof he'd been with the family after their last photo. The investigation now hinged on finding Harlan, but the wilderness was vast and time was cruel. If this story's gripping you, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales that uncover the truth. The camera had revealed a predator in the wild, but the Caldwell's final chapter was still out there, hidden in Yellowstone's heart. The thermal spring steam curled into the crisp September air, a ghostly reminder of Yellowstone's hidden dangers. Ranger Alice Henshaw stood at its edge, the ground beneath her boots soft and treacherous. The backpack buckle, corroded but unmistakable, lay in an evidence bag, its faint traces of human DNA a haunting clue. The spring's acidic waters could erase a body in days, but the camera's evidence, the growled "Don't turn around," the shadow of a man with a stick, pointed to Harlan Tate as more than a bystander. Alice's team was exhausted, their faces etched with the toll of weeks in hell-roaring canyon, but the discovery of Leona's watch in a Wyoming pawnshop had reignited their resolve. Harlan had been with the Caldwells, and he'd taken something personal. The question was whether he'd taken their lives. Agent Tessa Breyer, coordinating from the command post, pushed deeper into Harlan's shadowy past. A 2006 sighting placed him in a remote Oregon logging camp, working cash jobs under a false name. A co-worker recalled him carrying a carved walking stick and muttering about trouble in Yellowstone. Tessa's team tracked down the co-worker, who provided a chilling detail. Harlan had a scar across his left knuckles earned in a bar fight. Mara Keene re-examined the camera's blurry image, enhancing the shadow's hand. A faint line across the knuckles matched the description. It wasn't courtroom proof, but it tightened the noose around Harlan. In the canyon, Nicholas Adams mapped the thermal spring's underground channels, using sonar to trace where floodwaters might have carried remains. The data suggested a network of caverns, some sealed by collapsed rock, others flooded with scalding water. If the Caldwells had been swept into one, recovery was nearly impossible. But Alice refused to give up. She ordered a final sweep of the spring's perimeter, where the dogs alerted again. A ranger unearthed a small metal whistle, the kind Sean carried for emergencies, its surface pitted but intact. Nearby, a shred of fabric, blue like Juniper's backpack, clung to a root. The finds were scattered, like breadcrumbs leading nowhere, but they confirmed the family's presence in this deadly corner of the park. Tessa's investigation hit a breakthrough when a Montana hunter came forward. In 2003, he'd met Harlan in a backwoods bar where the drifter drunkenly boasted about fixing a problem in Yellowstone. He'd flashed a child's hair clip, a silver butterfly like Juniper's, as a keepsake. The hunter, uneasy, had kept quiet until news of the Caldwell's case resurfaced. Tessa secured the clip from an evidence locker. It was an exact match. Harlan wasn't just a witness, he was a predator. The FBI escalated the manhunt, circulating Harlan's photo to every law enforcement agency west of the Rockies. Alice's team, meanwhile, faced a new challenge. A storm was forecast, threatening to flood hell-roaring canyon and bury any remaining evidence. They worked against the clock, using drones to scan inaccessible ledges. On the final day, a drone captured a glint high on a cliff face, a metal carabiner, clipped to a frayed rope, dangling from an overhang. It was Sean's, part of his climbing gear. Below, in a shallow crevice, they found a child's drawing, crumpled but legible. A wolf, sketched in Juniper's style, with Echo scrawled in crayon. The rope suggested a fall, but the whistle and hair clip pointed to Harlan's presence. Tessa Seanrized a sequence. Harlan, caught poaching, confronted Sean, who tried to protect his family. A struggle ensued, and Sean, Leona, and the kids either fell or were pushed into the spring's deadly waters. Harlan, panicked, grabbed trophies, the watch, the clip, and fled, leaving the camera behind when it fell into a crevice. The storm hit, washing away hope of further excavation. Alice stood in the rain, the carabiner in her hand, knowing the Caldwells were likely gone, dissolved by the park's brutal chemistry. But the camera's secrets had exposed Harlan's role, and Tessa was closing in. A tip placed him in a Nevada trailer park in 2007, but he'd vanished again. The case was no longer cold. It was a hunt for a man who'd turned a family's adventure into a nightmare. Miles, Leona's brother, joined Alice at the canyon's edge, clutching Juniper's drawing. His grief, raw after 5 years, mixed with a flicker of justice. The camera had given them truth, if not closure. Harlan Tate was still out there, a ghost in the wild. But the Caldwell's story was no longer silent. If this tale of loss and pursuit has you riveted, hit like and subscribe for more stories that uncover the shadows of the wilderness. The hunt for Harlan was far from over, and Yellowstone's secrets were still whispering, waiting for the final piece to fall into place. The rain in Hell-Roaring Canyon fell in relentless sheets, turning the ground to mud and forcing Alice Henshaw's team to retreat. The carabiner, Juniper's wolf drawing, and the whistle lay sealed in evidence bags, each a silent testament to the Caldwells' final moments. Ranger Alice stood under a tarp, her eyes fixed on the thermal spring's steaming surface, its heat a cruel reminder of how Yellowstone could erase a family without a trace. The camera's images, Sean's smile, Leona's narration, the sinister shadow, had brought them this far, but the storm had ended their search for remains. Agent Tessa Breyer, back at the command post, refused to let Harlan Tate slip away. The hair clip, Leona's watch, and the hunter's story painted a damning picture. Harlan wasn't just a drifter. He was a man with a history of violence, likely panicked by the Caldwells catching him poaching. Tessa's team scoured leads from Nevada to Oregon, chasing a ghost who thrived in the cracks of society. A 2008 police report surfaced from a small Utah town. A man matching Harlan's description, scarred knuckles and all, had been questioned for stealing camping gear. He'd carried a carved walking stick and mumbled about staying clear of Yellowstone. The lead was fresh enough to act on. Tessa dispatched agents to the area, hoping Harlan was still nearby. In Cheyenne, Dr. Mara Keene made a final push on the camera's data, recovering a partial image from a deleted file, time-stamped 2:19 p.m. on September 12, 2002. It showed a rocky ledge, Sean's green windbreaker barely visible at the edge of the frame, and a hand, Harlan's with that telltale scar, gripping a stick raised high. The image wasn't proof of murder, but it screamed intent. Mara's audio analysis pulled one last fragment, a child's scream, cut off abruptly. Juniper or Dalton, it was impossible to tell, but it was enough to make Alice's blood run cold. The Caldwells hadn't fallen, they'd been attacked. Tessa's team tracked Harlan to a derelict trailer in a Nevada desert lot, abandoned but filled with clues, a tattered map of Yellowstone marked with hell-roaring canyon, and a child's butterfly hair clip, identical to Juniper's. The trailer's owner said Harlan had left months earlier, headed for Mexico. Tessa issued an international alert, but the trail was cooling fast. In Yellowstone, Alice and Miles met at the Slough Creek trailhead, where the Caldwells had begun their hike 5 years ago. Miles clutched Juniper's drawing, his voice steady despite his grief. "They didn't just disappear," he said. "That man took them from us." Alice nodded, her jaw tight. The camera had given them truth. Harlan Tate had confronted the Caldwells, likely over his illegal scavenging. Sean, protective and defiant, had fought back, and Harlan, in a moment of rage, had struck, sending the family into the spring's deadly waters. The camera, dropped in the chaos, had been swept into a crevice by the 2003 flood, waiting for Gideon Wells to find it. The case was solved but not closed. Harlan remained a fugitive, his face on every law enforcement bulletin from Wyoming to the border. The Caldwells' remains were likely lost to the spring's acid, their laughter silenced forever. Yet the camera's images lived on, a digital echo of a family's love, preserved against the odds. Alice filed her final report, recommending the case stay active until Harlan was found. Miles began a foundation in the Caldwells' name, funding safety programs for park visitors, determined to keep their memory alive. The trailer park lead went cold, but Tessa vowed to keep hunting, knowing Harlan couldn't hide forever. On a quiet evening, Alice returned to Hell-Roaring Canyon alone, standing by the spring. She placed a small stone, etched with Caldwell, on the ground, a marker for Sean, Leona, Juniper, and Dalton. The park was vast, indifferent, but the camera had spoken, and its truth had given the family a voice. The mystery was no longer buried. It was a call for justice, echoing through the wild. If this story of loss and relentless pursuit has gripped you, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales that uncover the shadows of the wilderness. What would you do in Miles's shoes, searching for answers against a silent landscape? Share your thoughts below, and join us as we chase the next mystery, determined to bring light to the darkest corners of the unknown.